Our journey begins by the explanation of a game. It's one of those mobile with an automatic system generic AF. Blessing of Miracle. Probably choose because of course, it's full of the top tier waifus. Still, despite enjoying the game, our man never spent a cent and didn't even film at the end of it. Then the unthinkable happened. He was sucked into the game. As a playable character? As an NPC? No, he became a nobody, a random background figure standing still and isolated. His new name? Kongjima. By accident, he bumps into a girl with blue hair and freezes, clearly startled because, oh no, it's a woman. Trauma? Most likely. He awkwardly asks if she's okay and she apologizes for the inconvenience. Fortunately for him, the game setting is Korea. Names, locations, and geography are familiar, allowing him to adapt quickly. And so, for almost a year he lives an ordinary life as a simple teenager, not even sure if this reality is a game anymore. Then one day he arrives home to his overly excited mother, who calls him the pride of the Kong clan. She hands him an acceptance letter. He's been admitted to Joaquin Academy. Annoyed, he says he already knows and begs them to stop talking about it so much. But his blurred-faced mother and the rest of the family can't stop praising him. Tomorrow is the entrance ceremony, and they're all buzzing with excitement. Sitting in his chair, he sighs. Tomorrow's the day. There's no way out. He's begged countless times to quit, but it was pointless. He stares at a photo, exhausted, muttering that this is all because of the real Kong GM, the original owner of this body. Apparently, this Kong GM passed the Academy's difficult admission test just before he took over. The parents don't know anything, but for our guy there's no excuse. Getting into this academy is insanely difficult. Was Kong GM a genius? Did he have a blessing? In this world, blessings, special abilities, are a big deal. Not everyone has one because most powers are genetic, passed down from birth. Society is structured around this. The noble, common, and privileged ranks maintain the power of the elite. Joaquin Academy was built to train heroes, exclusively for the most important families. Recently, though, they introduced special admissions, likely because they need new heroes. Maybe it's the monsters. And Kong GM? He was one of the few accepted through this new system. Our guy knows he's in trouble. This isn't his reality. This is a school for war. Training heroes here is nothing like joining the army. Grudgingly, he opens his status window. His blessing? The ability to negate pain, for 30 seconds. But the cooldown? 12 hours. Useless, he mutters, frustrated. There's one more blessing though, the blessing of the sword god. The effect is straightforward. If he attacks, it will cut. No activation limit, but there's a catch. It only works with blades under 30 centimeters long and 5 centimeters wide. It's an ability he's never heard of before, even though he knows the game well. And while then when you attack, it cuts. Effect sounds simple, the activation condition. Oddly specific. A blade shorter than 30 centimeters, like a sashimi knife. With no idea what's expected of him, he prepares for the ceremony, or remembers too late that he still needs equipment. At Joaquin Academy, even the cheapest E-rank weapons cost millions. Anything above C-rank is worth hundreds of millions, and A-rank or S-rank weapons are priceless treasures. The academy itself already costs a fortune. Asking his parents for more money isn't an option, but they require him to bring equipment. So, he shrugs it off and decides to visit any random shop. His solution? Convenience store sashimi knives. After all, Japanese knives are known for being sharp. And a master shouldn't blame their equipment, right? The scene shifts to the entrance ceremony. Someone stares at him and asks, "What exactly did you bring?" Our guy stands there, awkward and silent, surrounded by a pile of sashimi knives. He knows the rules. Anyone who doesn't bring decent equipment gets marked, an easy target for the wealthy students' bullying. The evaluator slams the table, furious, demanding to know if Kong thinks this academy is a joke. Why would anyone bring a pile of kitchen knives here? Kong, maintaining a serious expression, calmly replies that this is his equipment. The professor looks baffled, nearly yelling, but Kong interrupts him, telling him to calm down. He explains that he was accepted through the new special admission system, and his family doesn't have the luxury of buying expensive equipment. Kong points to the badge on his uniform, which clearly indicates he isn't from a wealthy family. To him, it's ridiculous that a professor at an institution claiming to treat everyone equally would act so prejudiced. He adds with confidence that blaming equipment is something only amateurs do. A true expert never blames their weapon. The professor, though stunned, is impressed by the boy's unshakable confidence and wisdom. Reluctantly, he grants admission to Kong, who just thanks him and walks off. In the background, murmurs arise from other students who overheard. Some of them, clearly irritated by the special admission label, mutter insults, even saying Kong stinks. The professor quickly shuts everyone up and orders them to leave once the evaluation ends. Kong doesn't stick around to argue. He dashes out, wanting to avoid these lunatics. Outside, the day has barely begun, yet Kong already feels drained. He expected judgment like this, but living through it still stings. At least he survived the evaluation. Now the only thing left is the classroom qualification test. But he's too far into this to quit. The next 3 years at this academy feel inevitable. As he looks around, he's taken aback by how massive the place is. It's more like a small city than a school. He has to admit though, it's pretty cool. It's surreal for Kong, who dropped out of high school in his old world due to family issues, to be standing here now. Then a voice over the intercom announces that tests are starting and instructs new students to gather in the training area. Everything feels like it's happening too fast, but a test is a test. Kong is determined to give it his best. Except for one little detail. He's never actually used a knife since coming to this world. He's completely unprepared. He remembers the professor's words, never let go of the knife no matter what. Holding it now, he wonders if the original Kong GM had been slicing sashimi at 2 years old or something. Kong unsheathes the knife and immediately, a blue aura surrounds it. The equipment meets the conditions, activating the blessing of the sword god. However, there's a catch. Kang's physical strength is too low, and the knife itself is at an equally basic level. To compensate, suppression kicks in, synchronizing the equipment with his abilities. Kong stares, amazed that just pulling the knife out triggered the blessing. Before he can process what's happening, something approaches, an overwhelming force that sends him into agony. He starts screaming as reality itself begins to warp around him. It's like he's rupturing the world. Desperately, he drops the knife and everything immediately snaps back to normal. He's left gasping on the ground, clutching his pounding head. So that's what activating the blessing feels like. If every use comes with this much pain, then he can't rely on it at all. The intercom voice drones on, calling students to the training field. Kong hesitates, staring at the knife on the ground. He doesn't want to leave it there, it's still technically his equipment. Summoning his resolve, he picks it up by the handle, only to be struck by another jolt like lightning. He screams again. The scene shifts to the training hall, located in a massive coliseum filled with spectators. Nobles are gathered, whispering about their children entering the academy. All eyes turn to the arrival of someone significant, the Sword Emperor Siegfried von Nibelung. His name alone draws reverence. A messy-haired chubby guy nearby declares Siegfried to be the strongest human alive. Siegfried descends, his gaze shifting sideways. Someone else has arrived, Midia Poison. Her name suits her venomous aura. She greets Siegfried playfully, noting it's been half a century since they last met. He remarks on her academy attire, mocking her for acting senile at 70. She retorts that every woman wishes to stay beautiful, offering to make him 10 years younger with her powers. Siegfried scoffs, saying character is what matters, not appearances. Midia laughs, amused that Siegfried hasn't changed. However, she slyly points out that his presence here signifies something unusual. Normally, Siegfried avoids mingling with the elite. Perhaps, she suggests, it's because of his granddaughter, who is among the new students. Siegfried dismisses the comment, calmly stating that things are about to begin. The artist must have decided to give everyone ridiculous UGO-level hairstyles. Meanwhile, our boy stands there with his plain black hair, wondering if he's the only one with a normal look. Everyone whispers about him being a special admission student. So, this is what it feels like to come from humble origins. Suddenly, there's a flash from the back and the murmurs intensify. Who's arriving now? Oh, the blue-haired girl. He already knew she studied here. Abel von Nibelung, the granddaughter of the sword god and, more importantly, the heroine of that game. The reason he got addicted. Hot and sneaky. The story explains the existence of a subspace, a separate reality where all attacks feel real, and the pain is fully experienced. However, since it doesn't interfere with the actual world, even murder is allowed there. The upcoming test is revealed. A battle royale competition inside the subspace. Students will be grouped in tens and their survival will determine their ranks. Midia announces there will be no equipment restrictions, while Siegfried points out this unfairly benefits the wealthy. She counters that the wealthy fund the academy, and the new special admission system was already a huge concession. In the crowd, Kong blushes. She's so much more beautiful in 3D, just looking at her leaves him rattled. Seeing the hopeful gazes of the other guys, he feels sorry for them. He knows the game well. Abel von Nibelung has a miracle blessing. In other words, she's tied to another protagonist. Beautiful people always have someone destined for them, so Kong decides it's best not to get involved. His goal is simple: live a peaceful, ordinary life. Finish school without trouble, get a safe desk job, and that's it. Then a paper catches his eye: heroes earn the highest salaries. But after the agony he felt from drawing that knife earlier, he knows hero work is out of the question. Those roles are for people who can protect the world. He'll stick to his comfortable desk. A crystal in the sky suddenly announces the Academy's test, a battle royale. Last one standing receives the star rank. Second and third place earn the dragon rank. Fourth through seventh get the wolf rank. And 8th to 10th? They're labeled common trash. The scoring is automatic and there's no time limit. Kong recognizes it immediately: this is just like the game. His strategy is to avoid drawing attention and finish quickly. A blue energy spreads as the test begins. May the blessing of the heroes be with you. Kong, however, is determined not to use his weapon. Cut to the next scene. Most students are already defeated. The top rankings are announced as 24 groups wrap up. Siegfried observes that this year feels unfair, with Abel and the descendants of the Shang and Jiao families competing. The results were predictable. Abel finishes her match in just 7 minutes and 14 seconds. It doesn't break her grandfather's record, but it's still one of the Academy's top 10 times. Siegfried shrugs it off. It's only natural for a Nibelung descendant to have that talent. With things wrapping up, Siegfried decides to leave. Abel asks if he wants to watch the other descendants, but he dismisses them as a bunch of pigs. Classic humility. He doesn't like nobles at all. Fair enough, he fought in the war and earned his authority. Suddenly the atmosphere shifts. A strange energy surges, startling both Abel and Siegfried. They look up, confused and alarmed. Pieces of the subspace begin to shatter, crashing to the ground and exploding among the students. People panic, wondering if someone fell from the alternate space. A blue light flashes in the sky. Siegfried watches intently as a small knife falls, embedding itself in the ground. Midia immediately calls for medics and orders cadets to help. And lying there, unconscious? Yep, it's Kong. The outcome seems decided already. A blonde noble yells that he'll take Kong out, but another grabs him by the neck and punches him. Kong snaps to his senses, realizing he's now in the middle of the battle royale. Worse, the June brothers are here, infamous for their brutality. Horrified, Kong watches as the brothers torture students for over 30 minutes instead of killing them outright. But why are they leaving him alone? Is he so weak they don't even consider him worth fighting? One of the brothers, holding the blonde noble by the neck, checks if he's dead yet. Then he throws another student to the ground, complaining that it's getting boring. He begins to count the remaining people. He glances at his brother and tells him to slow down, he's killing too quickly. Then he stomps on another person, crushing them underfoot. Sarcastically, he apologizes, saying, "Oops, there goes another one." Pointing to a terrified girl nearby, he says, "You can have her for some fun." The girl freezes in fear. Hiding nearby, Kong is paralyzed. Ever since the torture began, everyone has panicked, but the brother's sadistic behavior hasn't changed. The brother in red begins walking toward the girl. He smirks, saying she's just his type and that he's already imagining the screams coming from her mouth. His brother in blue calls him a pervert, but the red brother insists, "I'm just going to start tearing her apart." Suddenly, a voice shouts out, "You damn bastards." It's Kong, his voice trembling as he calls them out for their psychotic behavior. Even if this is a separate space, this is too much. The brothers pause and turn toward him, curious about who dared to speak up. They quickly notice he's a special admissions student. The red brother sneers and promises to crush Kang's head in an instant. As he advances, he adds that he'll rip Kang's tongue out for the insult. Kong panics, scrambling for a plan. He considers using his pain-nullifying ability, but it only lasts 30 seconds. The brothers have been at this for half an hour. What chance does he have? Then he remembers something, the sashimi knife in his bag. But there's a problem. Activating it will also trigger his blessing. Still, it's his only choice. The brothers hesitate as Kong pulls out the knife, which glows with a faint blue aura. He expects them to be frightened, but instead they burst into laughter. "Are you serious? What's that supposed to do?" Kong glances at the girl. She's alive for now. He steels himself. The red brother laughs again, promising to give Kong a painless death since he's so amusing. Then he lunges, aiming for Kang's head. Kong activates the pain-nullifying ability for 30 seconds, knowing this is his only shot. As the brother mocks him, calling it a kitchen knife, Kong prepares to strike. He knows it's now or never, cut or be killed. He remembers questioning why gangsters always use sashimi knives in movies. Back then he thought it was exaggerated. But now, as the knife slices cleanly through flesh, the brother's laughter turns to a blood-curdling scream. The chubby brother stares in horror as his arm falls to the ground with a heavy thud. A flashback hits. Kong, in a kitchen long ago, once asked his mentor about those movie scenes. His mentor, a former gangster, smacked him and explained, "In real life, skin and organs contract when stabbed. Cutting cleanly? Impossible." But Kong, as clueless as ever, joked that maybe his mentor wasn't skilled enough, earning another smack. Back in the present, the truth speaks for itself. The severed arm lies at Kang's feet while the brother screams, clutching his bleeding stump. In a panic, he turns and bolts toward his sibling, crying for help. But the red-clad brother freezes, his face pale with fear. Snapping out of it, he shouts, "This brat will slice us both up," and charges forward. Kong doesn't hesitate. The blade slices cleanly again as if cutting through paper. The fallen brother watches in horror as his sibling collapses. Looking down, he sees half of his brother's face staring back at him. The air is heavy with shock. A red-haired observer watches silently from the sidelines, stunned by what just happened. The blue brother tries to regain his composure. He reasons that they're in the void space, This must have been a fluke. Judging by Kang's awkward form, he's clearly an amateur. But one thing is clear, that knife is dangerous. Realizing his brother lost due to recklessness, the blue brother prepares. He activates 3 blessings simultaneously: a defensive shield, a jump boost of 200%, and spiritual damage for his fists. With confidence he declares, "This time you're done for." Meanwhile, Kang is still counting down the seconds left on his pain-nullifying ability. The blue brother charges, confident that his fists will crush Kang's head. But suddenly he's stunned, his body freezes. Kang has used him as a target for a throwing knife. The brother stands dazed, not understanding what just happened. Time is almost up. 5 seconds, then 2, then 1. The brother collapses unconscious, and at that exact moment Kang's blessing ends. The pain hits him like a truck and he starts screaming. Sometime later Kang wakes up. He's lying in what looks like a hospital room, disoriented and unsure of how he got there. As Kang gets up, a blonde boy bursts into the room and dashes outside, shouting that the student has woken up. Moments later, someone enters the room and Kang immediately recognizes the man, not personally but from stories. This is Siegfried, one of the 7 heroes of the 7 stars, the strongest man in humanity, and the one who destroyed the Demon Lord's Legion 50 years ago. Accompanying him is Media, the academy director. Kang wonders why 2 such prominent figures are here. Siegfried wastes no time and asks for Kang's name. After Kang introduces himself, Siegfried gets straight to the point, demanding to know what Kang did during the test. Although Kang himself isn't sure, he's painfully aware that he caused everything. He notices Siegfried's hand resting on his sword and feels a wave of dread. There's no way he could survive against someone like him. Nervously, Kang admits he may have gone too far during the evaluation and is prepared to accept the consequences. Siegfried stares him down, but Media interjects, telling Siegfried to stop intimidating the boy. She explains to Kang that Siegfried cleared his meridians while he was unconscious, which stuns Kang further. Media then says she finds him interesting. Siegfried reprimands Media for being so casual, but she brushes him off, saying she reviewed the test footage while Kang was out. She confesses that watching Kang risk everything to protect another student moved her deeply, even calling him a hero. Siegfried, ever the stoic, tells her to act more dignified. Media assures Kang that he won't be punished for his actions, though she mentions that the Mao brothers are on the verge of dropping out. Relieved, Kang feels some weight lift, knowing he won't have to deal with them again. Then Siegfried drops a bombshell. Kang ranked as the top student in the evaluation. Kang is floored. His whole plan was to stay under the radar and live a quiet, uneventful life. Later, in Media's office, she reflects on her 2 decades as academy director, admitting she's never seen anything like this. Meanwhile, Kang expresses his dislike for being named the top student. This surprises both Siegfried and Media. They explain that the subspace itself determines such rankings, but Kang still refuses to accept it. Siegfried, puzzled, wonders aloud how Kang, a seemingly ordinary boy, could possess such extraordinary skills. He admits that if Kang had an incredible physique, immense experience or even natural talent, it would make sense. Yet Kang has none of these. In fact, his untrained body contradicts the master-level swordsmanship he displayed. Siegfried feels an uncharacteristic surge of competitiveness, unable to understand how someone so young could perform at such a level. Media, ever eccentric, teases Siegfried, suggesting Kang might be worth pursuing romantically despite his age. Siegfried, unimpressed, spells out what people at the academy call women like her. Media loses her temper, but the focus shifts back to Kang. Through some maneuvering, Kang manages to get himself downgraded to the wolf class. This is a relief as he had no desire to remain at the top and become a target for power struggles. While some argued for placing him in one of the elite classes, Media ensured the matter stayed quiet, honoring Kang's wish for a low profile. When Kang enters the wolf class, all eyes are on him because of the badge on his chest. After a few moments, the students return to their conversations, allowing Kang to breathe easier. He hopes this means they'll ignore him. As he takes his seat, enjoying the solitude, a voice calls out to him. Turning, he sees the red-haired girl from the test. She thanks him for what he did. Kang brushes it off, saying anyone would have done the same, though deep down he feels like a hypocrite. Everyone sees him as a hero, but in truth he only acted to save himself. Kang introduced himself as Kang Jiunma, and the girl introduced herself as Chloe. He politely commented that it was nice to meet her and added that he hadn't expected them to be in the same class. Internally though, he was puzzled. He had played the game countless times and had no memory of a character named Chloe. Since the main story didn't involve her during the Demon Tribe War, he concluded she must be just an ordinary person like himself. Kang asked her to keep what happened earlier a secret and she agreed. Chloe then mentioned she had a question for him, but before she could ask, the professor interrupted, telling everyone to take their seats. They agreed to continue their conversation later. The professor slammed a notebook onto the desk, congratulating the class on their admission and reminding them they carried the pride of the hero Valor Draken. He introduced himself as Lee Won-bin, the instructor for the Wolf class, and ordered everyone to change into their physical training uniforms. Training would begin in 30 minutes. When a boy with glasses asked about the training objective, Kang immediately guessed it: Saitama's regimen. He joked internally, wondering if this meant everyone would eventually go bald. Kang approached the professor, who immediately called him by name, surprising Kang. He explained that he wasn't feeling well. The professor pondered aloud, saying basic training might not benefit the academy's top cadet, and suggested Kang move to the star class. Realizing that media must have informed the instructors, Kang quickly clarified that he just needed to use the bathroom and would return for training. Outside, Kang joined the others in running. Or more accurately, he lagged behind, struggling with his unfit body. He hadn't even finished the warm-up and was already exhausted. Chloe caught up to him, asking if it was really that difficult. Kang denied it, insisting he was fine, though he'd only managed 5 laps, while Chloe casually mentioned she was on her 9th. She encouraged him to keep going and ran ahead, leaving Kang stunned by how unprepared he was. Later, back at home, surrounded by empty bottles, Kang slammed one on the table in frustration. He was completely drained and starving. After just 1 week at the academy, he faced an unexpected problem: food. The scene shifted to the cafeteria, where Kang, desperate for pork, was told by the counter lady that he needed a meal ticket. When he checked the price, 50,000 won, he was devastated. That amount was nearly what he used to spend in an entire month. Frustrated, he leaned against the wall, sipping what little he could afford. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. His physical stats had reached level 12. This meant fewer restrictions and the ability to wield a weapon up to 38 centimeters long. He noticed his body becoming more defined, his evolution progressing rapidly thanks to the sword god's blessing. He realized his fear of using a sword during the ceremony was fading. Now, being without one felt strange. As Kang pondered the system's influence on his psyche, someone knocked on the door. It was Chloe, asking politely if she could come in. She noted she hadn't seen him in the cafeteria all week and wanted to check if he was okay. Kang explained he had been bringing food from elsewhere, reassuring her not to worry. Chloe mentioned she was planning to cook dinner but needed to buy ingredients. Before she finished, Kang was already outside, telling her to hurry up. He offered to cook instead, and later, after Chloe finished her meal, she praised how delicious it was. Noticing the empty plates, Kang asked why her fridge was stocked with so much fish. Chloe explained she lived near the beach. Kang remarked that it was perfect, as cooking fish was his specialty. Deciding to show off, he prepared sashimi using the sword god's blessing. With impressive precision, he finished in just 21 seconds, marveling at his own work. When Chloe asked how he became so skilled at cooking, Kang explained he had worked part-time at a Japanese restaurant. Chloe seemed unfamiliar with the concept of part-time work, highlighting their difference in social statuses. Kang simply smiled, saying he was glad she enjoyed the meal. Chloe offered to handle the dishes, leaving Kang to relax after a surprisingly eventful day. He stepped outside to admire the moon, feeling a rare sense of satisfaction after a grueling week. But his peace was interrupted by a sudden noise inside. Turning back, he saw Chloe struggling with the dishes. Clearly, this was her first time attempting such a chore. As he moved to help, a book tumbled from the shelf and landed open. Glancing at it, he realized it was a diary. His curiosity got the better of him and he began reading. One entry caught his attention. She had received help from someone in class and felt indebted to repay the favor. Smiling at the stickers adorning the diary, he thought it was endearing for someone her age. Flipping another page, he read about how her heart wouldn't stop racing whenever she saw the person who helped her. It dawned on him that she was talking about him. Amused, he turned another page only to find it filled with "I love you" scrawled over and over. Alarmed, Kang thought it might be time to quietly slip away. But Chloe had already noticed. Dropping a glass, she stared at him in shock and demanded to know if he had read it. The scene shifts to Chloe's backstory. Born into the infamous Cecilia family, she was trained from childhood to be an assassin. In their tradition, emotions were weaknesses, suppressed through rigorous conditioning. By the age of 15, Chloe had taken her first life. The family motto drilled into her was clear: assassins don't deny their talents. Despite her skill, the Cecilia family insisted their children keep a low profile at the academy, always enrolling in the lower-ranked common classes. Chloe accepted her fate, believing it was impossible to break free. Her life seemed predictable, until Kang appeared. During a subspace trial meant to test her resolve, she was prepared to face death calmly as she always had. But Kang disrupted the narrative. He yelled at her attackers, standing between her and harm. In that moment, Chloe saw something she had never experienced: someone fighting for another person. The memory of childhood fairy tales flashed in her mind, and for the first time, her heart raced uncontrollably. Was this love? Back in the present, the atmosphere between them grew tense. Kang, awkward and clueless, tried to shift the mood by commenting on the beauty of the night and thanking her for the meal. As he turned to leave, Chloe stopped him. "Did you see it?" she asked, her voice sharp. Feigning ignorance, he stammered, "See what?" But Chloe pressed on. He tried to deflect, mentioning the book and hoping she'd let it go. She didn't. Realizing there was no escape, Kang admitted he had read the diary. The air around her changed instantly. Chloe's demeanor grew cold as she reached for her sword. Kang's mind raced. He was on the 4th floor with no chance of jumping out the window. The only exit was through the door, but she stood between him and it. As she dragged her sword along the ground, her eyes lifeless and her movements mechanical, he realized she had entered an entirely different state, one far more dangerous. She wasn't the shy, awkward girl he had spoken to moments ago. This was her assassin side, awakened and intent on eliminating him. Piecing things together, Kang understood her diary was the trigger, and now her lethal instincts were in full control. He needed a plan. His sashimi knife was in his room, but the only nearby weapon was a box cutter on the table. Chloe lunged. Kang snatched the box cutter, regretting that it had come to this. All he could do now was defend himself and hope for a chance to break through her icy resolve. Kang activated the sword god's blessing, hearing the familiar phrase, "May the blessing be with you." As Chloe charged at him, he made an offhand remark about her hair being too long. With a single clean strike, the scene shifted and Chloe was lying unconscious on the floor. When she woke, she seemed dazed, muttering about where Gemma had gone. Her memories were fragmented. She recalled glancing at him by the window while washing dishes and wondered where her katana was. Spotting it nearby, she felt relieved but also remembered how she often lost consciousness after wielding it. Typically, her only memory after such moments was the old man's voice, praising her talent as an assassin. Collapsing face first onto her pillow, Chloe groaned in frustration. She had fainted at the worst possible time, while he was in her room. Her mind raced as she wondered if she had said anything embarrassing. Then she noticed the box cutter on the floor and touched her hair, realizing it was shorter. Confused, she checked the trash and saw the strands he had trimmed. As unstable as she was, Chloe interpreted this as an act of kindness. To her, he had been considerate enough to give her a haircut. Feeling touched, she opened her diary and began writing a heartfelt entry about how much she adored Gemma. Meanwhile, outside, Kang was throwing up. The blessing had saved his life, but he had overused its effect, burning through 5 extra seconds beyond the 9-second limit. Completely drained, he slumped onto a bench, lamenting how even the energy from dinner was gone. He started reflecting on Chloe's fighting style. Unlike most swordsmen who aim to disarm or incapacitate, Chloe's every move was designed to kill. Her strikes targeted vital points with terrifying precision, like a trained ambush specialist. Fighting her, Kang had genuinely feared for his life and instinctively aimed to counter with a lethal blow. Thankfully, the box cutter's short blade only managed to give her a haircut. Though she had fainted afterward, Kang was grateful the situation resolved itself. Life at the academy was proving far more dangerous than he had anticipated. Sitting there, Kang thought back to his life before falling into this world. He had been ambitious, a master of sashimi knives who had reached the pinnacle of his craft. Now in this game-like world, everyone seemed bound by their roles. The game was called Blessing of Miracles, named after the legendary blessing granted to the protagonist. Another blessing, Valor, was tied to Baylor Wakim. As far as Kang could remember, these 2 blessings were central to the story. The protagonist's mission was straightforward: save the world from the Demon King. But Kang? He had been chosen by a sashimi knife. Slapping himself in frustration, he tried to make sense of his predicament. The events at the academy were making him lose sight of his original goals. While he knew the key characters and major story beats, he didn't fully understand how this world worked. What he did know was that the game's main storyline was about to begin. The protagonist's blessing should have activated by now, signaling their arrival at the academy. According to the storyline, major events would escalate in the 2nd semester of the 3rd year. That's when the demon race would attack the academy, igniting a war between demons and humanity. This conflict would eventually spiral into a full-scale world war. Kang couldn't deny the story's cliches. Back when he played the game, he had quit halfway through, finding it predictable despite its challenges. But now, living in this world, the looming war felt terrifyingly real. The question wasn't if it would happen, it was whether he could survive it. For now, Kang had 3 days to prepare. He could either find a way to escape this world or, failing that, grow stronger to endure it. Somewhere in this chaos, he hoped for a happy ending. After all, the protagonist would surely survive, but Kang needed power to protect himself. Yet he couldn't draw too much attention, or he'd be dragged into the front lines against the Demon King's army. The day's events taught him he needed to be more cautious when using the Blessing of Pain. Checking his stats, he noted that his performance was better than expected. Strangely, the interface seemed to reveal more information each day. While stats like mental strength made sense, the assimilation rate stat puzzled him. Clicking on it only brought up a message: access restricted. The more he tried to unravel the mysteries of this world, the more questions arose. But one thing was clear: he needed a real weapon. Relying on a box cutter and the Blessing of Pain for 30 seconds wasn't going to cut it anymore. He needed a sword that wouldn't activate the blessing. Luckily, he remembered that next month's exams offered a reward, Murasame, a rank B blade. If he could master it, it would be sufficient to graduate from the academy. Its design ensured the sword god's blessing wouldn't trigger, making it an ideal primary weapon. Of course, this meant more effort than he wanted to put in, but there wasn't much choice. As he sat, someone called out and he turned to see a girl with cyan-colored hair. It was obvious who she was. Looking battered, she boldly claimed the bench as hers. Kong just stared at her, dumbfounded and unsure how to respond. "Say something, man," she yelled again, telling him to move aside. Caught off guard, Kong couldn't help but notice how surreal she looked, even after seeing her multiple times. Spacing out for a moment, he was about to get up when she clarified that he didn't need to leave, just sit next to her. Even though she was stunning, her claim about the bench being hers was ridiculous. It was public space after all. Deciding it was best to avoid any unnecessary interaction, Kong stayed quiet, hoping to steer clear of the protagonist's storyline. Still, her beaten-up appearance caught his attention, and he found himself glancing at her, marveling at her beauty despite her condition. Out of nowhere, she mentioned that the stars were most visible from this spot. Her sudden comment left Kong scrambling for words, his lack of social skills painfully evident. Was this really Abel? The granddaughter of the sword saint and the protagonist known for being hard to approach? She turned to him asking if he used the sword. Kong, confused, wondered how she knew. She explained that her grandfather had told her that swordsmen have a certain look in their eyes. For a moment, Kong worried that she might have figured out his secret. Abel then asked if he wanted to hold her sword, making it clear she knew he recognized her. Kong found it odd. Why would she bother asking that when everyone at the academy knew who she was? He admitted he sort of knew her, to which she replied that she didn't know him. Her bluntness only added to his confusion. She commented that it was a cliché for someone to know her name while she didn't know theirs. Kong, uninterested in getting involved, questioned why he should share his name with someone he'd just met. Abel explained it was always good to know people. You never knew who might be a spy for the Demon King. She added that it was suspicious for him to be alone in a spot where she usually trained. Realizing he was being indirectly threatened, Kong quickly turned the tables, suggesting she could be the spy. Abel clarified that she was there to train. Kong responded that he was doing the same. Curious, Abel asked what kind of training he was doing to remain so calm. Kong said it was breathing exercises. Noticing the wounds on her hands, he complimented her dedication. Abel confirmed that people didn't understand the pressure of carrying Siegfried's bloodline. She explained that she needed to be perfect because any sign of weakness would attract opportunists. This year she admitted she wasn't the top student. It was the first time she had been defeated, and while it was frustrating, she also found it oddly relieving. However, she was determined to find out who had surpassed her and defeat them next time. Kong asked if it was worth taking so seriously. Abel replied that it was a matter of pride. She even begged her grandfather to reveal the person's identity, only to learn they weren't even in her class. The worst part? They had just joined the academy. Realizing she was oversharing, Abel apologized, saying she shouldn't talk about such things with someone she'd just met. Intrigued, Kong asked why she was telling him all this. Abel replied it was because he seemed weak. Her family's motto was to be firm with the strong and kind to the weak. Finally understanding her kindness, Kong realized she thought he was trash. Well, that explained why she was so difficult to approach in the game. Deciding it was time to leave, Kong wished her a good night. As he turned to go, she demanded his name. The scene shifted to the classroom. Life at the academy was calmer than Kong expected. Chloe had quickly made new friends and blended into the class, while Kong did his best to avoid eye contact. Whenever she approached Kong, her friends would cast judgmental looks. But Kong didn't care. Likely because he was a special student. And besides, he wasn't the only one in the Tiger class this year. Kong thought it was a relief he ended up in this class. At the start of the semester, the Star and Dragon classes would usually form political factions. Even in the game, that nonsense had annoyed him. Now he was glad he didn't have to deal with it. Walking with his phone in hand, Kong wondered what to eat. That's when Medea handed him a black card, apologizing for forgetting to give it earlier. Apparently it was her personal card. Kong was stunned. So this is what being a sugar baby feels like, he thought. Still, the best part was that he hadn't disrupted the flow of events so far. If he kept this pace for the next 3 years, the future he envisioned might come true. Despite this optimism, the war looming ahead was never far from his mind. Later, in class, a professor lectured about a war 700 years ago between the Demon King and the hero of Wacken. Afterward, Draken founded the academy with his 7 disciples to prepare future heroes. The professor emphasized this would be on the test, but Kong was nearly falling asleep. He already knew the story. Jaqen Baylor, the founder, had fought demon commanders for 20 years, leading humanity against the demon army. In the end, he lost an arm and could no longer fight. The war ended in a bloody stalemate, resulting in a fragile truce between humans and demons. Jaqen then established the academy to ensure peace. The professor reminded the students that this truce was why they had peace today. But Kong knew better. Those 700 years of peace were about to end. As the lecture wrapped up, Kong wondered if he should tell Medea. But what consequences would that bring? Medea often seemed like she wanted to leave the academy as soon as possible, but Abel was the first to awaken an anomaly thanks to the Lord Poet. She was also the first of the 7 heroes to step forward and protect the students. Unfortunately, Kong also knew her fate. She would be the first to be sacrificed by the Demon King. He wished he didn't know that. The professor ended class, reminding everyone about the upcoming exam in 2 weeks. As students left, they chatted about something exciting. Kong stayed behind trying to recall what it was. Then it hit him. It was May 5th. He overheard students by the door saying someone wasn't destined for their class but for the star class. Kong knew exactly who they meant. Today marked the arrival of the protagonist of this world, Leon von Reinhardt. With him came the end of 700 years of peace. Kong already hated Leon with his ridiculously cliché face and the way every woman fell for him. If only this were an R-rated story where guys like Leon met early, tragic ends. Leon's charisma had already drawn in Rachel, the Saint of the Sword, Saki Ryojo, the daughter of the Saint of the Bow, and even Abel. His party members were extraordinary. Despite Kang's disdain, Leon's blessing of miracles made him humanity's first choice for the hero's journey. Except calling it a choice was generous. People were forced to join the war. Kong remembered that even the legendary hero Valor had only managed to defeat the Legion's first commander. Imagining the strength of the true Demon King was surreal. Leon walked into the classroom, greeting students with his radiant smile. Then he noticed Kong and flashed him a grin too. Kong immediately sensed something off but reminded himself of what the blessing of miracles could do. He was sure Leon would handle everything. Leon's trustworthy aura made it seem like he could solve any problem. Suddenly the scene shifted. Kong was at the training hall swinging a sword. Since it was a longer blade, the blessing of the sword god didn't activate, allowing him to practice uninterrupted. He desperately needed to master the basics of swordsmanship. Earlier, Rachel had approached him, asking if she'd done something wrong. Kong almost lost his composure but kept calm since they'd be stuck together for at least a year. He assured her everything was fine and she looked relieved. But Kong was still confused, trying to piece together her identity. There was also the mystery of how she could wield a sword even when unconscious. Her expression seemed to cry for help, yet her sword radiated murderous intent. If it came to killing, Rachel might be more dangerous than even the notorious evil brothers. Rachel apologized for what had happened earlier and offered to make it up to Kong by cooking him another dinner. She promised to do her best, even if her cooking wasn't as good as his. Kong hesitated, vividly recalling her wielding a sword. The problem was the way she seemed to glow as she begged. It was hard to refuse. But in his mind he pictured himself waking up in the morning, sliced into pieces and stuffed in the fridge. That's when an idea struck him. Instead of dinner, he asked if she could do him a favor. Rachel looked puzzled and Kong explained it was something only she could help with. Blushing, she asked what it was. Kong then requested her help with swordsmanship training. At the training hall, Kong realized how urgently he needed a teacher. Chloe with a sword in hand was terrifying. Every night before bed he'd watch YouTube videos on how to survive Yandras. When Chloe arrived, cheerful as ever, she asked when he'd gotten there. Kong, already on edge, replied he had just arrived. Chloe mentioned she'd been waiting for him since 6:30. Kong frowned, reminding her they'd agreed to meet at 8. Her innocent expression didn't fool him, and he was reminded of her unhinged nature. Still, his attention momentarily drifted to her toned abs, finally understanding the source of her strength. Chloe handed him a sword and asked why they weren't using real ones. Kong was stunned. Who trains with a real sword? He explained that, since it was just practice, wooden swords were safer. Chloe gave him a sweet smile and said he was kind for not wanting to hurt her. Then she swung the wooden sword, slicing through the air with a sharp whoosh. Kong broke into a cold sweat, realizing even a wooden sword could shatter his skull. He checked the system, relieved the blessing of the sword god hadn't activated. Yet, the synchronization stats still confused him. Chloe called out, asking if something was wrong. Kong quickly reminded himself only he could see the system. Turning to her, he said, "It's my first day, so maybe go easy on me." Preparing himself, Kong asked if they could start. In his past life, he had always valued practice. He believed that mastery required more than just physical effort. It demanded total dedication. At the academy, his progress came from observing himself and learning to self-correct. He noticed his sweaty palms and unsteady stance. Reminding himself that swordsmanship required precision, he braced for the training. But Chloe leaped toward him. Kong wasn't fully prepared and the blade was already near his neck. It wasn't clear if he dodged or if the blade nicked his cheek. Panicking, he yelled, asking why she wasn't going easy on him. Chloe, unfazed, switched the blade to her other hand and prepared another strike. Kong managed to block it, but the force sent his arm flying upward, leaving him trembling. Feeling a surge of confidence after the block, he attempted a counter-strike. But before he could land it, Chloe was already airborne. Kang found himself questioning how Chloe kept getting faster with every move. Perhaps her first attack had been just a warm-up. He blocked again, but the force cracked the wooden hilt, sending him stumbling backward. Chloe's relentless barrage continued. Though Kang managed to hold his defense, each strike made him fear for his life. Worse, he couldn't find any opening to counterattack. Suddenly his wooden sword shattered. Chloe apologized, saying she didn't mean to break it, but admitted she hadn't thought it was so fragile. Then she froze. The broken sword's altered length activated the blessing of the sword god. The system kicked in, reshaping Kang's personality and reducing his humanity. A dark aura enveloped him as the heat activated, and Chloe instinctively backed away, visibly terrified. The system coldly announced Kang's humanity was slipping away. In the midst of this transformation, Kang's perception shifted. He was now standing in his old kitchen under a bright spotlight. Confused, he wondered if everything had been a dream. Noticing a fish on the counter, he remembered he was supposed to prepare it. Thinking he'd used the chef's Chinese knife, the system interrupted, rejecting his choice. Trying another knife, he faced the same denial. In the end, his only option was the sashimi knife. Reluctantly, he picked it up, fearing the pain the system might inflict. But instead, he felt rejuvenated. Determined, he declared it was time to create a masterpiece as the heat activated fully. Meanwhile, back in the training hall, Chloe was shouting his name, asking if he was okay. Kang, pacing aimlessly, suddenly vanished in a flash of blue light and reappeared in front of Chloe in an instant. She barely managed to block his attack, but the impact sent her flying, crashing to the ground and coughing up blood. Chloe, shaken, realized Kang had become an entirely different person in mere moments. His behavior now resembled a deranged protagonist's. When Kang struck again, she dodged narrowly, struggling to comprehend how a single hit had overpowered her. Weak and unable to stand properly, Chloe begged him to stop. Inside Kang's mental world, he was baffled. The fish on the counter was now dodging his cuts and, even more bizarrely, speaking. Listening closely, he realized it was calling his name, Jama. Looking at the sashimi knife, Kang remembered who he was. Then, as if awakening from a dream, he recognized the fish as Chloe pleading for him to regain control. The blade slammed into the wall beside her, missing by a hair. Kang, barely managing to stop himself, let go of the sword just before it struck her. Chloe opened her eyes, stunned she wasn't hurt. Kang suddenly pulled her by the waist. For a moment, it seemed like a setup for a kiss, but instead he told her they should stop for the day. Chloe asked if he was okay, but Kang casually thanked her for the practice and walked away. She couldn't believe this lunatic had almost killed her and then left as if nothing had happened. Later, as Chloe returned to her room, she reflected on the day. Kang's power wasn't just raw strength, it carried an unusual, almost instinctive energy. Even with the broken sword, she realized she had no chance against him. Suddenly, a voice interrupted her thoughts. Knox Audier, a second-year student she addressed as her brother, commented on her enjoyment. Chloe's demeanor shifted instantly. Knox mocked her, asking if she was now associating with insignificant people like Kang. Chloe snapped back, telling him not to insult others. Smirking, Knox warned that if she continued spending time with Kang, the Audier family would eliminate him. Lowering her head, Chloe retorted that even if the entire family came after Kang, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. Without waiting for a reply, she walked away. Knox remained behind, pondering Kang's name. Meanwhile, Kang was beginning to realize that his power wasn't a blessing or divine favor. It felt more like a curse. Determined to stop relying on the sword god's dangerous influence, he resolved to find new equipment. Yet the strange power seemed to defy his will, controlling his body and urging him to cut deeper, destroy more. For a fleeting moment, he lost all control, feeling utterly free yet bound like a puppet. It was only Chloe's desperate scream that finally snapped him back to reality. He glimpsed fragments of another reality and instinctively let go of the sword, breaking its hold over him. His body seemed to know that holding onto the blade any longer would mean losing himself forever. Strangely enough, it was Chloe, the Yandere girl who once wanted to kill him, who snapped him back to his senses. While part of him resented that the power had activated because Chloe broke the sword, he couldn't deny his gratitude. He left quickly, but the question lingered: how could he prevent this power from ever awakening again? This so-called blessing from the sword god was far more of a curse. Kang began to realize that activating it came at the cost of pieces of his life. 3 days later, the classroom buzzed with energy. A purple-haired student tried to chat with Chloe, but she brushed him off, saying she'd check it out later. All she could think about was Kang Jiama, who hadn't shown up that day. Earlier, she had knocked on his door and heard groans of pain but hadn't dared to barge in. She feared breaking the door might make him hate her, so she left. Yet she realized how much she enjoyed secretly watching him, whether he was fighting or simply lost in thought. Oh Chloe, you're the definition of a Yandere. She'd lost count of how many times she'd spied on him, always making sure not to get caught. Another day passed, making it 4 since anyone had seen Kang. The teacher silenced the class, scolding them for wasting the opportunity to study at such a prestigious academy. Since it was raining, they would have an indoor study session. But even the teacher couldn't help noticing Kang's prolonged absence. He chose to trust the boy and hoped he'd return soon. As the lesson began, the classroom door opened, startling the teacher. "Who dares to arrive late?" he barked. The figure approaching was unfamiliar, taller, colder, and more imposing. Chloe called out to him in confusion. Wait a second, where was the kind-hearted Kangjiyama? This version looked like a bad boy, and naturally the girls were swooning. The teacher dismissed the commotion, urging everyone to take their seats. Whispers filled the room as students wondered if this was the same special admission student. Someone even commented that he looked more handsome now. Of course they love bad boys. Kang sat with a brooding expression that practically screamed he hated the world. When class ended, everyone headed to the cafeteria. Chloe approached Kang asking what had happened. He brushed it off, claiming it was nothing serious. She pressed further, mentioning his absence and expressing her worry. Flashing a faint smile, he thanked her for her concern, but Chloe could tell he wasn't being entirely honest. In truth, Kang had endured a harrowing 3 days. He had been bedridden, convulsing, and mentally drained. The curse of the sword god had inflicted unbearable pain, leaving him too weak even to eat. When he finally looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself, skeletal and with strands of his hair turning white. This was the price of meddling with that cursed power. Spotting Chloe's guilty expression, Kang decided to ease her mind. "Is your dinner offer still open?" he asked casually. Chloe, flustered, misheard him and asked him to repeat it. When he did, she lit up with joy, eagerly agreeing. Kang felt relieved to see her so happy. She asked what he'd like to eat, promising to prepare anything. He requested fish, mentioning it had been a while since he last ate it, and the last time hadn't ended well. As he began to explain, something red brushed past his neck. Turning his head, he noticed a strange plant radiating energy. He shifted his gaze and spotted someone standing nearby. It was Nox Audier, his crimson eyes glowing with mischief. Chloe froze in fear. Kang immediately asked if she knew him. Locking eyes with Nox, Kang stepped forward, demanding he speak. Nox didn't say a word, simply smirking as his aura intensified. Kang braced himself, wondering what kind of trouble was about to unfold. Chloe urged Kang not to get involved with Nox and demanded the man leave. Despite her attempt to sound firm, Kang noticed her trembling voice betrayed the fear she held for this individual. Nox sneered, questioning whether Kang was worth breaking the rules for. He added that Chloe, no matter what she claimed, could never truly sever ties with the Cecilia Audier clan. Chloe snapped back, declaring she had no connection to the clan anymore. But Nox only laughed, saying the blood on her hands bound her forever. The family she was born into would always claim her. Kang silently observed, piecing together that Chloe was being treated as some kind of renegade, caught in the middle of a deep family feud. Nox demanded she abandon that thing and return to the clan. But Chloe's anger flared, shouting at him not to call Kang a thing. Kang, already weary of his growing list of problems, began recalling what he knew about the Audier clan from the game. They were infamous for their unmatched skill in assassination, a shadowy group that emerged halfway through the storyline. Despite their lack of raw power compared to other heroic houses, their precision and brutal upbringing molded every member into a deadly weapon. To Kang, Nox seemed to fit the mold perfectly. The real oddity was Chloe, so cheerful and kind in contrast. Still, as Nox stared down at them with unshaken resolve, Kang noticed Chloe trembling beside him, biting her lips so hard it bled. She just wanted a normal life. But Kang knew that for someone like her, born into a clan like the Audiers, that dream was nearly impossible. Just as his cursed blessing tied him to a cruel fate, Chloe's birth had chained her to a life of violence. Kang wasn't a hero, nor did he aspire to be one. But he couldn't stand by and do nothing. Deciding to face Nox, Kang felt a rush of determination. If he couldn't escape his curse, then he'd use it. He asked Nox if he was ready, calmly declaring that he wouldn't run anymore. The time had come to move forward. Elsewhere, their instructor was deep in thought, concerned about Kang's recent demeanor. A student interrupted with a teasing comment about his grumpy expression leading to baldness, but he brushed it off irritably. Suddenly, an urgent call came through. The instructor's expression darkened as he learned about the brewing confrontation between Kang Jianma and Nox Audier. The subspace arena was being prepared. In the arena, Kang stood ready. He hadn't expected the setup to be so quick, but it didn't matter. This wasn't reality, so physical harm wasn't a concern, though the mental strain would still be real. As the crowd gathered, Kang couldn't help but note the irony. All he ever wanted was to avoid attention, but now he stood center stage, a gladiator in a coliseum. Chloe, visibly shaken, stood by his side, guilt weighing heavily on her. Kang reassured her, thanking her for the equipment she'd lent him. She warned him that Nox was dangerously strong, the greatest genius in the family's history. Kang dismissed the title as overdramatic. Titles didn't matter, winning did. The announcement for the duel rang out. Kang turned to Chloe one last time, telling her not to worry. "The world is full of geniuses," he said with a confident smirk, "and that's why I'll win." As the doors opened, Kong stepped into the subspace arena. The crowd roared, and he felt like a gladiator under the watchful eyes of the elites, even spotting familiar faces like Abel. Nox appeared on the other side, his temper barely restrained. Kong smiled to himself. If nothing else, this fight was going to be unforgettable. Nox demands to know if Kang can't differentiate between bravery and foolish arrogance. He questions why Kang even showed up wielding such a pathetic excuse for a blade. The dark aura surrounding him begins to ripple toward Kang, who instantly recognizes it as pure killing intent. Kang smirks, replying, "A skilled fighter never blames their weapon." Nox, visibly on edge, opts to end things swiftly. A crow materializes behind him, and he declares he'll begin by ripping out Kang's insolent tongue. Kang takes a moment to analyze the situation, noting Nox's outrageously overpowered equipment. Wait, he's using a Hongran blade? An S-rank weapon? That's just ridiculous. Still, Kang isn't surprised. He expected the guy to have an advantage, but Kang came prepared too. His weapon of choice? A simple sashimi knife borrowed from Cielo's kitchen. The drone descends, signaling the start of combat with a radiant blue light. "May the blessings of the heroes guide you," it announces. The crowd quiets as the two opponents face off. Kang wastes no time, activating blessings to suppress pain and calling upon the sword god's blessing. His eyes glow white, giving him an almost demonic presence. The spectators whisper in shock. Was this going to be more than the simple mismatch they expected? The battle erupts with a flurry of strikes, each faster than the last. A blonde observer comments on the unexpected speed of the duel, while Edbull, watching from the sidelines, struggles to reconcile this skilled fighter with the supposed weakling he'd seen before. Nox presses the attack, sending purple slashes of energy ripping through the ground toward Kang. Yet every strike misses. Frustrated, Nox leaps into the air, activating his three-headed crow technique. A violent purple aura surrounds Kang, and Nox is confident the boy's finished. But in a blur of blue, Kang vanishes, reappearing on the opposite side of the arena, untouched. The crowd gasps as whispers ripple through the stands. Even Abel can't figure out how this newcomer is holding his ground against someone as formidable as Nox. Nox recalls Cielo's warning that Kang wasn't ordinary, but he convinces himself Kang is merely relying on agility. Still, seeing Kang fight with kitchen knives fuels his rage. When one of Kang's knives falls to the ground, Nox sneers. "What kind of plan is this?" he demands. Kang remains silent, extending his arm and pointing the remaining knife, adorned with floral designs, at Nox. The absurdity of the gesture leaves Nox baffled, but he decides to end this farce with his full power. He boasts about the might of his Hongran blade, but before he can strike, Kang disappears again. Time seems to freeze as Kang reflects on his desire for a simple, unnoticed life. But since he can't escape this path, he resolves to cut through it perfectly. In an instant, Nox's arm is severed, flying across the arena. The audience falls silent as Nox stares in disbelief, and Kang appears behind him. The crowd erupts in chaos as Kang slashes again, this time decapitating his opponent. The once calm protagonist transforms into a merciless warrior, leaving everyone stunned. Nox collapses, motionless, while Kang calmly sheathes his makeshift blade. Abel watches in shock, while her friend gazes at Kang with heart-shaped eyes. The drone hovers overhead, announcing, "Winner, Kang Jayama." Duel completed in 26 seconds? The crowd roars in disbelief. A first-year student had just defeated a second-year prodigy. Though victorious, Kang knows he's shattered any chance of staying under the radar. The academy buzzes with gossip about the boy who defeated an audier, and Kang resolves to face whatever comes next head-on. Meanwhile, Abel finds herself unable to stop thinking about him, hearing his name at every turn, a constant reminder of the duel that changed everything. When Nox's arm hit the ground, Abel stood frozen, her mind racing to comprehend how Kang wielded such flawless swordsmanship using nothing more than kitchen knives. She had always been proud of her knowledge, being the granddaughter of a sword master, but this moment made her realize just how naive she had been. A memory flashed in her mind, her smugly saying she was curious about the person who had beaten her. She'd vowed to crush him the next time. She also remembered teasingly making a cute face, claiming to share everything with him because he seemed weak. Now, as the puzzle pieces fit together, she wondered if Kang was this year's top student. Her face turned crimson as she muttered under her breath, "It must be this damn guy who's stronger than me." Abel's thoughts spiraled, and she desperately wanted to know what had been going through Kang's head at that moment. Suddenly she woke up startled, her heart racing. Her blonde friend Rachel leaned closer, asking what was wrong. Abel quickly brushed it off, saying it was nothing. Rachel wasn't convinced. "Are you sure? Did you forget your gear? Are you hungry? Do you need the bathroom?" she teased, one question after another. Abel snapped, telling her to shut up. Then Rachel smirked. "Wait, is it about a boy?" Abel's face turned tomato red and Rachel burst into laughter. "I never thought the legendary Abel would be caught up in romance. Abel stammered, denying any romantic feelings, but Rachel was already curious. Who's the lucky guy? Is it Leon? He's handsome. Abel's expression gave nothing away, but Rachel's gears were turning. Then it hit her. Wait, is it that special student from yesterday? Kang? Abel froze and Rachel's grin widened. Oh, I'm a genius. Grabbing Abel's hand, Rachel announced, we're going to the Tiger's classroom. One dramatic entrance later, Rachel burst through the door, stunning the students inside with her beauty. She climbed onto a table shouting, where's that black-haired guy? Someone meekly pointed out that standing on tables wasn't appropriate, but Rachel waved it off. I'm pretty enough to get away with it, she said confidently, and the poor guy agreed. Abel meanwhile stood awkwardly at the door, mortified by the scene. Then Rachel's eyes lit up as she spotted Kang. Found him, she exclaimed. But she also noticed Kwa, a girl nearby, looking at Kang with unmistakable admiration. Rachel's grin turned mischievous. This just got even better, she muttered, starting to unbutton her shirt and loosen her tie. Kwa, sitting quietly until now, suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. Rachel approached Kang, sniffing him playfully, leaving everyone including Abel and Kwa thoroughly confused. Rachel shrugged and dramatically flopped onto the table in front of Kang, who was just waking up. Kang blinked groggily, his brain struggling to process Rachel's presence. Are you Kang Jayama? She asked, leaning in closer. Kang's instincts screamed danger, but before he could react, Kwa grabbed Rachel's arm, demanding to know who she was. The tension in the room skyrocketed as Rachel smirked, clearly enjoying the chaos. Kang finally understood why his gut had been warning him. Rachel's demeanor shifted and she pulled out a dagger. A fight was about to break out in the middle of the classroom, something Kang had never expected. Abel stepped forward, her voice sharp. Rachel, what are you doing? Rachel casually replied, just saying hi. Abel sighed, placing a hand on Rachel's head. Drop the dagger and don't interrupt when adults are talking. But Ko wasn't backing down. She lunged at Rachel, shouting, die already? In a blur, Rachel deflected the attack, spilling what looked like strawberry juice. Tauntingly, she glanced at Kwa and said, you're weak, short, slow, and completely out of control. The room held its breath as tension crackled in the air. One thing was clear, Rachel wasn't just here to visit, and this situation was far from over. Rachel grips Kwa's arm tightly until Abel yells at her to stop. With a swift motion, Rachel flings Kwa across the room. Miraculously, Kwa lands gracefully on her feet like an angel. The guys in the room are enjoying the drama unfolding. Here's the truth. Rachel hails from the Sword Sinks clan, where raw power is everything. She turns to Kong and asks, is that girl your girlfriend? Kong quickly responds, no. He notices Kwa doesn't seem happy to hear that, but it's the truth. We're just friends, he adds, still trying to make sense of the chaotic situation he's found himself in. It's only now that Kong realizes Abel is also here. She awkwardly asks why they came looking for him. Rachel smirks, saying, Abel's interested in you and I wanted to see for myself. Abel immediately flushes and stammers, when did I say that? She tries to explain but only ends up confusing everyone even more. Embarrassed, she turns away, muttering that this is all a misunderstanding and that she never asked to come here. Unfazed, Kong says, if that's the case you can leave now. Rachel's hard eyes soften slightly at his bluntness. It seems she's drawn to guys who reject her as she quickly replies, you're interesting just the way I like them. Kong retorts, good to know you like interesting guys but I'm not one of them. But Rachel isn't discouraged. Don't be like that, she says. How about coming to my dorm after class? She makes her intentions clear, drawing out the invitation to make sure there's no misunderstanding. Kwa snaps, yelling, take your hands off Kong. Rachel bursts out laughing, finding it hilarious that Kwa thinks he belongs to her. Abel, having had enough, calls out to Rachel, trying to regain control. Rachel stands up, brushing herself off. Well, it was nice meeting you, Kong Jayama, she says, her eyes full of hearts. I'll see you later. She waves goodbye, leaving Kong wishing the whole scene would just disappear. The moment they turn around he goes back to sleep. Abel pauses for a moment, glancing back at him, and oh no, she has that look. She's definitely crushing. She quickly turns away and follows Rachel out. In the corridor, Rachel reflects on Kang's cold gaze. She realizes there's a difference between someone being cold and the sheer intensity in his eyes. When he looked at her, she felt like her throat could be slit. The encounter had far exceeded her expectations. She had gone there just to toy with him, never expecting to find someone like this. For her clan, finding exceptional warriors for breeding purposes is a priority. She starts considering Kong as a valuable resource. Maybe that Netflix invite could lead somewhere after all. She teases Abel, saying, it's no wonder Kong caught the attention of the invincible princess. Then she abruptly apologizes. Abel brushes it off, saying, you should apologize to the students whose class you interrupted. But Rachel replies, I'm not apologizing for that. I'm apologizing for Kong Jayama. Unfortunately, I'm the one who's going to enjoy him. Meanwhile in the hospital, Nox has just woken up, muttering, "I'll kill that bastard." Before the fight, he was known as the genius of the audiers, and his body had never known defeat. Nox considers sneaking into Kang's dorm at night to kill him but hesitates as he recalls the sheer aura Kang exuded during their duel. Determined nonetheless, he shoves a nurse aside and storms out, vowing to rally every audier to take Kang's head. Nox also plans to reclaim Chloe, whose potential he believes might even surpass his own. The timing feels perfect. His nocturnal techniques are at their peak effectiveness. Confident, he opens the door only to freeze in shock. There sits Kang casually eating an apple. Nox expected some sort of peculiar defense, but Kang simply looks up and asks, "What's the senior doing here?" Nox is caught off guard and can't respond. Nothing happens and we cut to the next day where Chloe nervously bites her nails. Despite her frustration, she's the one who drew her blade. Irritated, she mutters about whether Kang prefers women with huge airbags. If that's the case, she might have to kill someone. Kang interrupts her thoughts by calling her name. Snapped back to reality, Chloe asks what he needs while reluctantly lowering her blade. Kang calmly asks, "How's Nox doing?" She hesitates before replying, "He's in the medical wing." "That's strange," Kang muses. "I don't remember injuring him." Chloe shrugs, saying she hasn't visited him but heard he was admitted despite showing no visible injuries. "Don't worry, I'm sure he's fine," she adds. Kang doubts Nox is the type to break down from a trivial defeat but can't shake the feeling that he might be planning something. Curious, he asks Chloe, "Where's Nox's room?" Back in the present, Nox trembles as Kang calmly eats an apple in his dorm room. Nox, his voice shaky, asks, "See, can I have an apple?" Kang raises a brow and points out, "You're asking while I'm already eating it?" Kang glances around and comments, "The Audier family must be loaded to give you a room like this all to yourself." Nox, still confused, stammers, "How did you even get in here?" Kang doesn't answer. Instead, he picks up a knife, making Nox tense up. Is Kang here to finish the job? But Kang simply resumes slicing his apple with expert precision. Nox can't help but marvel at his skill, wondering why he's so good at cutting fruit. Kang places the neatly sliced apple on Nox's desk. "When your digestion's not great, fruit can help," he says. Nox realizes he's being humiliated. Anger twisting his face, he grabs his blade, ready to retaliate. But Kang freezes him with his next words. "If you even think about revenge, I'll personally go after the entire Audier family." Nox is stunned into silence. Kang walks to the door, shuts it behind him and leaves without another word. Outside, Kang sighs, a smirk creeping onto his face. "Just a candlelight can snuff out any moment," he mutters, referring to Nox. He knows he likely crushed whatever willpower Nox had left. Of course it was all a bluff. Kang couldn't possibly wipe out the entire Audier family in 30 seconds. Maybe a few, but he'd rather avoid unnecessary bloodshed. As he walks away, Kang reflects that he feels like he's in the eye of a storm. This wasn't the plan, but he's adapting. If Nox backs off, it'll be one less problem to deal with. But Kang's real concern lies elsewhere, with the crazy girl who was meant to be the protagonist's first approach in the original story. He knows he needs to plan his next move carefully. With the upcoming competition looming, Kang resolves to take it seriously. The reward, the legendary Murism, is something he desperately needs. The challenge? It's going to take longer than 30 seconds to win. The test involves defeating demonic monsters in teams of 5, emphasizing teamwork over individual strength. Fortunately, Kang already knows the monsters will be D-ranked mermen. Unfortunately, he remembers how awful they were in the game. Facing them in real life? Not ideal. At least they aren't sirens, demonic humans far worse than mermen despite their pleasing appearance. Sitting on a bench, Kang reflects on his month in this world. The peaceful evening reminds him of the tranquility he once hoped for. Even though 700 years have passed since the humans and demons signed a peace treaty, skirmishes and conflicts have persisted. He recalls the Vasman dispute 50 years ago, when the 6th Legion's commander claimed to have resurrected the 1st Legion commander, breaking the treaty. Flashes of the past surface in Kang's mind. Vasman landing a punch on a white-haired soldier while media clamored for Sieg. A younger version of the legendary hero emerges, cutting through demons with his blade. Humanity triumphed, birthing 7 heroes, sacrifices in their own right. The outcome deterred both factions from escalating the conflict further. Yet, Kang vividly recalls someone mocking, calling him humanity's strongest as absurd when all he did was kill the 6th commander. Sitting on the bench, Kang reflects, is this really the peace they fought for? Memories flood back, especially of the 1st commander, Baylor Jokum, who sealed away the 1st Legion leader. He knows that in 4 years the demons will launch their second assault, bringing the Demon King's first appearance. But for now, dwelling on it won't help. Kang shifts his focus to the upcoming tests. Annoying as it may be, he knows he needs allies. The problem? His phone's contact list is completely empty. No friends, no connections. It dawns on him that his newfound fame at the academy could work in his favor. If that's the case, he's determined to recruit the best people to secure the top score. Despite his dream of a quiet life, he's resigned to the fact that he'll have to achieve it the hard way. A week passes and Kong grows increasingly anxious. Not a single person has approached him to join their team. Reflecting on how he sliced through Nox, he wonders why no one has reached out, only to realize everyone is terrified of him. Looking around, he notices Chloe, also an outsider, hasn't been invited to any group either. Approaching her, he asks if she's found a team. She admits she hasn't. Kong is surprised since she once had friends. Seeing an opportunity, he suggests she join him. We just need 3 more people, he says. Chloe agrees without hesitation. She's an exceptional fighter and Kong feels confident in his choice. Considering his limited stamina, Chloe's strength is worth 1,000 of him. As Chloe beams with happiness, their moment is interrupted by someone shouting Kang's name. It's Rachel declaring, "I'm back to play with you." Kong sighs, already annoyed. When he asks why she's there, she replies, "I just told you, didn't I?" Rachel starts muttering something about the big guy arriving, prompting Kong to demand she get to the point. On the verge of tears, Rachel complains about his cold demeanor. Ignoring her theatrics, Kong tells her to stop calling him my Jiang. Rachel feigns deafness, pretending she didn't hear. In her usual clumsy manner, she collapses onto a desk, her airbags landing first, and claims she's just a bit unsteady today. Switching topics, Rachel asks if Kong has a group for the test. Without thinking, he says no. Rachel's eyes light up as she invites herself to join his team. Grabbing his chin teasingly, she says, "Gotcha now?" Kong brushes her hand away, questioning why she'd want to team up with him when she has plenty of admirers. Smirking, Rachel responds, "Because it'll be way more fun with you." Kong explains he already has a team with Chloe. Rachel grins and declares that's perfect. Now they only need 2 more people. Kong, baffled, wonders if she realizes she's risking her score by teaming up with him. He looks at Chloe, who seems fine with the idea. Reluctantly, he agrees. Rachel claps her hands, declaring, "No turning back now." When Kong asks who else she plans to recruit, Rachel grins and mentions a name that freezes him. Leon. The protagonist. Kong trembles, questioning what karmic misdeed led to this. All he ever wanted was a quiet life, and now he's stuck with Leon, Rachel, and Abel, characters he desperately wanted to avoid. While the girls might be manageable, Leon's presence threatens to completely derail everything Kong thought he understood about the future. He considers backing out, but Rachel doesn't give him a chance. The moment he agrees, she submits the team registration, locking him in. For the first time, Kong genuinely feels the urge to stab someone. Chloe notices his distress and asks if something's wrong. She mentions that since Rachel entered, Kong hasn't seemed like himself. He brushes it off, saying he's just surprised to be in this situation. Chloe reassures him, stating she's confident in his abilities. Kong starts reconsidering. He invited Chloe, so he can't abandon her now. Besides, this group is probably the strongest in the academy. Maybe he just needs to stay optimistic. When he asks about the team meeting, Chloe replies, "That giant blonde said it's at 6 in the cafeteria." The scene shifts to a cafe humorously named Starbucks with 2 S's. Chloe slams her cup on the table, declaring how delicious her drink is, while Kong looks horrified at its $35 price tag. Muttering robbery, he begrudgingly buys a $7 espresso, the cheapest option, and hates every sip. His phone buzzes. It's Rachel, claiming she's already at the cafe and asking when he'll arrive. Annoyed, Kong tells her to just come in. Moments later, Rachel bursts in, apologizing for being late, with Leon following behind her. Rachel scans the room, spots Kong and Chloe, and asks if they've been waiting long. Meanwhile, Leon's gaze locks on Kong. Kong immediately notices Leon's striking orange hair. His first thought? This guy looks like a delinquent. I expected Abel, but it's this guy instead. Leon steps forward, extending a polite greeting and introducing himself. He compliments Kong on his fight against Nox, calling it impressive. Observing Leon, Kong notes the balanced tone of intelligence and class in his voice, undeniably the protagonist of this world. As they sit down, the introductions begin. Leon starts by introducing himself as a student from the star class and the leader of their group. A pang of jealousy hits Kong. Not only is Leon skilled, but he's also incredibly handsome, while Kong feels worn out by life. Rachel skips her introduction, already familiar to everyone, passing the spotlight. The next to speak is a guy introducing himself as Speed Weapon, another star class student. Kong finds the name ridiculous and thinks it needs better context. Speed Weapon even has a superhero tattoo on his neck, clearly a fanatic. Chloe introduces herself next, stating her name as Chloe Audier from the Wolf class, adding that she's here thanks to Kong. Rachel can't resist teasing, repeating Kong Jayaman in a sing-song tone. Chloe frowns but quickly regains composure, politely greeting everyone. Finally, all eyes turn to Kong. He keeps his introduction short. Kong Jayama, same class as Chloe. The atmosphere turns awkward, but someone breaks the silence by opening a laptop and declaring it's time to start the meeting. A hologram of an island appears on the screen. Leon explains that earlier team leaders received files detailing the upcoming test. The island, while real, will be accessed through subspace teleportation. Injuries from the beasts there, however, will also be real. Leon zooms in on the map, showing their assigned northern region. Their objective? Kill as many mermen as possible since the number of creatures is limited. He adds that 3 other groups will be on the island. Leon asks if anyone has questions. Speed Weapon raises his hand, asking if the island has sirens and whether they pose a risk. Leon reassures him, saying the professors have already accounted for such threats. Chloe then asks if teams can attack each other. Leon clarifies that sabotage is grounds for disqualification, as the focus is on killing beasts. Kong quietly notes this news is likely disappointing for Chloe, given her assassin background. With the meeting concluded, everyone begins to leave. Leon lingers, gathering his things. As Kong rises intending to slip away, Leon calls out to him. Kong turns, confused. Leon asks, "Where are you from?" Though simple, the question feels loaded, as if it carries a deeper meaning. Before Kong can answer, Leon apologizes, saying it was rude to ask so suddenly. He explains he just had a strange feeling they were alike. Kong, puzzled, wonders why Leon would ask something so obvious. Kang's Korean heritage is clear to anyone. Leon dismisses it, telling Kong to forget the question and begins to leave. But Kong instinctively places a hand on Leon's shoulder, stopping him. "Wait," he says, surprising even himself. Without thinking, he asks, "Where are you from?" Leon raises an eyebrow but replies calmly, "Germany?" He gently removes Kang's hand and walks away, leaving Kong standing there, confused and questioning himself. Why did he feel compelled to ask that? Could Leon be from another world just like him? The idea seems absurd, yet Kong can't shake it. If someone had to take over a body, the protagonist would make far more sense than a random side characters. He glances at his blade, recalling how his reasoning sharpens when its power activates. Determined, he focuses on the existence of Leon in this world. A familiar voice whispers to him, confirming what he suspected. This Leon is exactly like the one from the game. But the revelation comes with a piercing headache, one even his pain suppression blessing can't fully dull. Even so, Leon's earlier comment about their similarities lingers. Seeking answers, Kong looks up Leon online but finds nothing useful. He curses himself for never paying attention to the male characters' backstories in the game. Trying to reassure himself, Kong thinks, it's just one encounter. Nothing will go wrong, yet the unease remains, leaving him with more questions than answers. If it happened again, Kong decided he'd consult the media. One thing he noticed was how much calmer he'd become in situations he'd normally avoid, possibly an effect of one of his blessings. Opening his skills menu, he saw his assimilation rate had increased from 2.5 to 6.8. Mental fortitude and weaponry stats were unchanged, and while his physical power had slightly improved through training, Kong was confident his weaponry skill would rise once he got his hands on the Murasum. But what exactly was this assimilation stat that kept increasing? The only unusual events recently were his fights with Nox and CLO. Could it be related? Unfortunately, he had no way of confirming it and no one to ask. Suddenly, a notification appeared, informing him that he'd achieved a certain number of blessings, triggering adjustments. He noticed his pain suppression blessing had been upgraded from 30 to 40 seconds. Finally, his efforts were paying off. Time flew as Kong trained physically, attended group meetings, sparred with CLO and dodged Rachel, who seemed glued to his side. With just one day remaining, Kong threw himself into training, slicing even the droplets of sweat that fell. His precision was impeccable and he felt ready for the exam. When the day arrived, an enormous subspace gate loomed before him, radiating a far more imposing presence than the training gates. Someone called his name and he turned to see his group fully armed and ready. Among them, Rachel's oversized halberd stood out, though her weapon wasn't the most intimidating thing about her. She teased him about being late as Leon urged him to hurry, while Speed Weapon stayed silent as usual. CLO greeted Kong cheerfully as he joined at the back of the group. Walking with them, Kong was impressed by everyone's equipment. Rachel wielded an S-rank halberd called Vermilion Phoenix. Leon didn't yet have his iconic Balma, but Speed Weapon wore a strange tube-like device on his chest. When Kong stared at it, Speed Weapon snapped, "What are you looking at?" CLO explained it was a healing support item, an S-rank artifact worth millions. Kong thought it was impressive, but Speed Weapon warned him to stay away. Suddenly, a voice announced the start of the exam. The professor addressed them, saying, "You seem ready, but remember, you're cadets, not heroes. Be cautious and don't take unnecessary risks for extra credits. Anyone injured can withdraw anytime." Leon stepped forward, rallying the group. "The time has come. Let's give it our best." The day Kong had prepared for was finally here, though CLO seemed uneasy. When Kong asked, she admitted her fear of sirens appearing on the island. He reassured her, reminding her that the instructors had cleared the area. Later, he learned her homeland had been devastated by siren attacks in the past. The professor signaled for them to step through the gate. Ruffling Cielo's hair, Kong said, "Let's go." Blushing, she stammered, "With Jayama around, there's nothing to worry about." As they entered the portal, Cielo suddenly heard Kong shouting her name. Snapping out of her daze, she realized she had zoned out. The group was discussing whether to call an instructor, frustrated by their lack of connection in subspace. Someone was already sprawled on the ground. The nightmare had begun. A siren appeared before them. Before that moment, the group had arrived on the island of Scapulae. The journey left everyone vomiting except Kong, who stood unfazed. Leon, impressed, asked how he was fine. Kong shrugged. "I never get seasick." Before they could regroup, a merman appeared. Smaller than expected, Kong felt foolish for taking the mission so seriously. It seemed easier than anticipated. Leon clarified these were the smallest mermen, and they'd grow larger closer to the central area. Their priority was finding CLO, who had somehow been separated. Moving through the forest, Leon warned everyone to stay alert, sensing her nearby. Suddenly, a red blur descended from the trees. Cielo landed in front of them. Leon scolded her. "Why were you swinging like a monkey?" Cielo admitted she was trying to stay unnoticed. She reported a cave 500 meters ahead. The group soon stood before the cave, its entrance dark and foreboding. Inside, dozens of glowing eyes reflected the firelight. Mermen filled the cavern. Rachel estimated 50 to 60 of them. They discussed their options. Clearing this horde could secure first place, but the risks were high. Ultimately, the decision rested with Leon. Earlier, they had agreed CLO would scout the island. Now their resolve was about to be tested. Leon had assigned Kong to the rearguard to deal with any threats from behind, a role Kong gladly accepted, appreciating the relatively light responsibility. Leon himself planned to stay in the center, ready to step in only if absolutely necessary. When Rachel asked about his strategy, Leon revealed his plan. On the island, Kong noticed the determination in Leon's eyes. Leon called on Rachel, who prepared her halberd, charging it with energy. With a Spartan-like throw, she sent it hurtling toward the merman's fire pit. The rest of the group stood in shock, questioning if such an elaborate move was necessary just to deal with fish. Before the merman could react, CLO darted in, snatched up the halberd, and used it to cut through two of the creatures with swift precision. She recalled Leon's directive, "Take down as many as you can." Her confident response echoed in her mind, "Of course." Meanwhile, Speed Weapon played a melody on his flute, activating a blessing that threw the mermen into a panic, scattering them in confusion. Empowered by the blessing, Rachel began dispatching the creatures with astonishing speed, counting each kill. 11, 18, 22, 24, she muttered as her blade danced through the air. Thanking Speed Weapon for his support, she switched to her personal weapon, activating her cat blessing. With a single strike, she felled 8 mermen. 2 more lunged at her from above, only to be swiftly cut down. On the other side of the battlefield, Rachel had already dispatched 45 enemies. The two women soon found themselves heading toward each other. Just as they seemed on a collision course, a massive merman leaped onto their path. Without breaking stride, they obliterated it simultaneously, its remains scattering in all directions. Rachel smirked, "You're faster than before." Cielo replied sharply, "That one was mine." The two then separated, continuing their carnage in opposite directions. Kong, relieved that their competitive clash hadn't turned violent, observed Leon taking down a merman with pinpoint accuracy. Leon turned to him and said, "You're worried about them?" Kong shrugged. "I was, but clearly I didn't need to be." The 60 mermen in the cave had been utterly decimated. Leon, satisfied, reminded Kong to trust in his allies and declared it time to move forward. Kong couldn't help but admire how well the plan had worked. Though in truth, it mostly relied on sending the two powerhouses to handle the heavy lifting. As Kong mulled over their success, a sudden blue flash appeared. Before anyone could react, the light pierced Leon's chest. Time seemed to stand still as gasps echoed through the group. Kong turned to see the source, a demonic siren, its presence chilling. Rachel screamed in disbelief, "Why is it here?" Speed Weapon questioned how this could happen when the cave had already been cleared. Panic threatened to overwhelm the group, but Kong forced himself to stay composed. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm the only one thinking clearly right now." Kong ordered Speed Weapon to heal Leon immediately. Turning to CLO, he instructed her to escape and warned the cadets and instructors to evacuate. CLO hesitated, but Kong reasoned that fleeing with Leon in his condition was impossible. It was imperative to alert everyone before more enemies arrived. After a moment's hesitation, CLO nodded and ran off to carry out the orders. Rachel, furious, demanded to know Kang's plan. He simply told her and Speed Weapon to focus on the smaller threats. Closing his eyes, Kong muttered, "I've never enjoyed dealing with small fish. It's the big catches that show real skill." He then turned to them with a smirk. "This is my specialty. Demons wield a unique power akin to human blessings. Magic." Leon fell to a single ordinary attack powered by it, underscoring the stark difference in strength between humans and demons. Despite wielding the blessing of the sword god, Kong isn't confident he'll emerge victorious. As he moves forward, the narrative highlights that even in the original game, subduing a magic-wielding demon required a full party. Now standing face-to-face with the demon mermaid, Kong acknowledges the impossibility of soloing a raid boss. But with Chloe still 10 minutes away, his only option is to cut down this monstrous fish in 40 seconds. Equipping 2 sashimi knives, Kong shifts from a single sword style to dual wielding. The system informs him that his nerves have steadied, his mental fortitude has increased, and his blessing will now adjust to his level. The blessing of the sword god activates, and Kong, now looking more demonic than the mermaid, thinks it's been a while since he's done proper sashimi. While Kong readies for battle, Rachel is a powerhouse on the battlefield, skewering mermen left and right with her halberd. One slimy creature attacks her from the side, but she blocks and retaliates, obliterating several in a single strike. Despite her strength, Rachel begins to tire as the mermen keep spawning. Speed Weapon, overwhelmed with healing Leon, can't assist her. Leon's wounds are deep but slowly recovering. Watching Kong prepare, Speed Weapon recalls the absurd strength he saw in their duel and wonders if Kong is simply insane. The mermaid powers up but Kong doesn't care, he's ready. Speed Weapon, unnerved by the oppressive presence of both Kong and the mermaid, fears it might be too late to stop him. The mermaid launches a water beam but Kong, fully focused, dashes forward, evading it. While dodging, Kong assesses her as a long-range attacker using water magic. He doesn't know much about magic but to him she's just flesh and bone. When the mermaid fires another beam, Kong jumps over it and slashes at her. She uses her water magic to distort the attack, making it feel as though he's cutting through water. Attached to the pond, she readies a water drill aimed at Speed Weapon. Just as she's about to strike, Kong slashes off one of her fins. The cut is too shallow and she retreats into the water before he can follow up. Kong recognizes the difficulty of predicting her movements and wonders if she's targeting the injured on purpose. Speed Weapon calls out to him and Kong briefly checks on Leon, asking if they're holding up. Speed Weapon confirms they're fine, and Kong charges back into the fight, telling Leon he's counting on him. Speed Weapon, reflecting on Kang's words, recalls a past conversation about heroes sacrificing themselves for hope. While the Academy is full of aspiring heroes, Speed Weapon hasn't seen anyone embodying those ideals, at least not in the Dragon class. Watching Kong fight, Speed Weapon realizes that Kong might be the hero he's been searching for, even if Kong himself rejects the title. The mermaid summons glowing piranha-like creatures and launches them at Kong. With impressive agility, he dodges and spins through the attack, noting that these magic fish are slower than the water beam. The fight intensifies as Kong continues his relentless assault. The magic fish missiles begin tracking Kang's movements, adapting to his evasive maneuvers. The mermaid, clever and cunning, hurls a massive stone at him, aiming to trap him between the homing fish and the rock. But Kong, ever resourceful, slices the stone into blocks midair and avoids the attack entirely. As the battle progresses, Kang's movements become sharper and faster. He effortlessly dodges the homing fish, frustrating the mermaid, who grows more annoyed with each passing moment. In retaliation, she launches even more fish his way and swiftly moves to target Speed Weapon. Rachel yells a warning, snapping Speed Weapon's attention to the mermaid's true intentions. It's clear now, she's been aiming for the healer all along. In a game, taking out the healer first is a solid strategy, but it seems her ultimate target is Leon, the supposed hero. Speed Weapon, bracing for the worst, is sure his end is near. However, Kong, still dodging the fish, manages to slash the mermaid's arm. It's another shallow cut, and Kong chastises himself for not dealing a more decisive blow. Furious at losing her arm, the mermaid channels her anger into the severed limb, powering it up. It slams into the ground, unleashing a devastating beam of light that tears through the side of the cave. The homing fish trailing Kong collide with the mermaid, erupting on impact. Meanwhile, outside the cave, a blue-haired student and their alluring instructor notice the power beam. The student remarks on the flash of light and the roaring sound that followed. Rain begins to fall, and the instructor, smiling cryptically, suggests they move quickly and evacuate the wounded. Though she attributes the phenomena to lightning and thunder, her demeanor is suspicious. Back in the cave, the beam attack has caused cracks and a massive opening. The retreating mermen are in disarray, searching for their queen. Rachel notices the shift in their behavior, while Kong, annoyed, reflects on his failed attempts to land a fatal blow. He suspects the mermaid is buried under the debris but doubts she's dead. His suspicions prove correct when a sudden surge of aura emanates from the rubble. Emerging dramatically, the mermaid leaps from the debris, her aura flaring and anger palpable. Kong removes his jacket and tosses it to Rachel, instructing her to protect Speed Weapon and Leon now that the smaller mermen are gone. Rachel acknowledges the order while Speed Weapon, still playing his flute, watches in disbelief. Initially thinking Kong was a madman, He now wonders if he's witnessing the rise of a legend. Kong rolls up his sleeves, finally free to focus on the fight. With only 10 seconds left, he resolves to make up for lost time. The mermaid, enraged and wielding all her power, charges at him with relentless fury. Kong, undeterred, closes his eyes to center himself. When he reopens them, a sinister darkness envelopes his left eye. His demon mode has activated. "I'll cut everything down," Kong declares, dashing toward the mermaid. Chloe bursts out of the cave, her only thought being to run faster and faster. She can't stop, won't stop, even as her legs scream in protest. Her blessing fuels her desperate sprint, slicing through trees in her path with sheer determination. Despite the pain and exhaustion, she pushes forward, Gyoma's instructions echoing in her mind. She must find the instructors. Thoughts of Kong flood her mind. To Chloe, he's the strongest person she's ever known, but fighting has never come naturally to him. He only draws his blade when absolutely necessary, and even then, it's with reluctance. She reassures herself that Gyoma made the right choice in trusting Kong with this battle, though the mermaid's strength unnerves her. Chloe wishes she were stronger, capable of lending a hand, but her doubts are interrupted by a distant explosion from the cave. She stops briefly, glancing back at the blast, her eyes welling with tears. She whispers a desperate prayer for Gyoma's safety, but there's no time to linger. With renewed urgency, she sprints forward, dodging obstacles, sliding through mud and shouting for anyone to help. Her voice cracks as she cries out, rain mixing with her tears, but her sharpened senses detect something, a merman presence to her right. Acting instinctively, she leaps and attacks, only for her strike to be parried. The defender is none other than Abel, the main waifu, who meets Chloe's gaze with equal surprise. As Chloe lands, she gasps out an apology for the attack, relieved beyond belief to have found someone. Exhaustion overtakes her and she collapses to the ground. Abel's group, busy fighting off mermen, accuses Chloe of being insane for ambushing them. They prepare to retaliate, but Abel halts them, recognizing Chloe's face. Barely conscious, Chloe begs for their help, explaining that Gyoma is in grave danger. Meanwhile, Speed Weapon is awestruck by Kang's battle against the demonic mermaid. Watching him fight is like witnessing a master chef skillfully handling a live fish on a cutting board. Speed Weapon realizes Kong isn't just holding his own, he's overwhelming the enemy. Each move is precise, each deflection calculated. Using his severing technique, Kong slices the mermaid's tail into perfect sashimi-like cuts, a display so clean it almost makes one hungry. Even Rachel, heir to the Spear clan and no stranger to power, is stunned by Kang's skill. Speed Weapon, noticing her amazement, begins to think the mermaid might actually die at this rate. But their moment of awe is shattered when Rachel spots an attack headed their way. She pushes Speed Weapon aside, angrily scolding him for daydreaming in the middle of a fight. The destruction from the attack reminds them of the stakes. They aren't facing an ordinary fish, but a demonoid mermaid with devastating magic. Kong and Speed Weapon share a moment of doubt, wondering how they'll handle the mermaid if she uses magic too powerful to counter. The mermaid, now infuriated by Kang's resilience, unleashes her needle squall technique, transforming raindrops into acid-tipped spikes. Kong moves swiftly, dodging and parrying as best as he can, but the acid begins corroding one of his knives. Without hesitation, Kong hurls the knife at the mermaid, slicing her cleanly in half. The mermaid freezes, stunned, her expression one of disbelief as she processes what just happened. Kong, looking more like a demonoid himself, steps forward, ready to end her. But before he can land the finishing blow, the mermaid summons a grotesque tower of mashed mermen from the pond, using it as a shield. Kang's slash lands, but instead of striking her, it cuts through the writhing mass of mermen. He stares in shock as the mermaid, still alive, screams in rage and pain. The mermaid grins wickedly and digs her claws into her own stomach, ripping out her demonic core. Without hesitation, she swallows it. The core begins to radiate power, swelling in her throat until it looks like she's got a grotesque goiter. With her glowing throat aimed at Kong, she prepares a devastating magical beam, her desperate all-or-nothing final attack. Speed Weapon, watching in terror, screams at Kong to get out of the way, but it's too late. Kong freezes, unable to evade, and the beam hits him directly. The scene shifts, and we see Kong standing in a vast expanse of water, bewildered and trying to piece together what just happened. He touches the water, realizing he's not alone. Surrounding him is an endless blue ocean under a sinister, demonic red sky. A voice calls out, "It's the system." The system begins to explain something, but Kong cuts it off, declaring, "I already know." Suddenly we're back in the fight. Instead of dodging the mermaid's magical beam, Kong had spun his knife midair, catching it in a reverse grip. With rain pouring in chaotic sheets and death bearing down on him, Kong had calmly severed not just the mermaid, but her magic too. This is the truth of his blessing. Whether it's magic, tangible or intangible, if Kong slices it, it gets cut. The rain pours relentlessly, drenching the battlefield. Kong stands over the lifeless body of the demonic mermaid, his knife and her corpse drenched in blood and rain. The mermaid's twisted, wrinkled form lies motionless, her head at an unnatural angle. Kong looks absolutely monstrous, his expression cold as he gazes down at her. A faint bubbling noise emerges from her body, and Rachel and Wet Pen exchange worried glances. Is it really dead? Wet Pen mutters nervously. Without hesitation, Kong raises his knife and delivers another slash, severing the mermaid's head. He kicks it into a nearby crater without a second thought. Wet Pen stands frozen in disbelief. He did it? Kong Jayama, a freshman, defeated a demonoid on his own, he whispers. Rachel and Wet Pen are still reeling from what they've witnessed when blood suddenly pours from Kang's wounds. His body falters as he drops his knife and collapses to his knees. Rachel rushes to his side, cradling him as she calls out for help. Meanwhile, Wet Pen notices movement near the cave's entrance. His hand instinctively moves to his weapon as he braces for another attack. But instead of the merfolk returning, he spots familiar faces, Abel and her group, carrying an unconscious Chloe. Relief washes over Wet Pen. It's about time they showed up, he mutters. One of Abel's team members shouts, "What the heck is that?" Their eyes land on the wreckage and the mermaid's mutilated body. Rachel clings to Kong, tears streaming down her face. Why is a mermaid here? And why is everything destroyed? Abel demands. The students gather around, taking in the scene. Abel's sharp gaze lands on Kong, her annoyance growing as she notices Rachel holding him close. Jealousy flickers across her face. Abel takes a moment to evaluate the situation. Despite the chaotic battle that left Kang's team battered and bruised, he seems relatively composed, though gravely injured. Abel thinks to herself, how can someone this young achieve so much? When she asks what happened, Wet Pen doesn't hold back. You expect me to believe the Academy scouted this island properly? What a joke, he says bluntly. Abel tries to rein him in. Explain properly, she insists. Wet Pen narrows his eyes. You don't have to believe me, but here's the truth. A demonic mermaid appeared out of nowhere and Kong defeated it, alone. Abel listens intently, but skepticism clouds her expression. A freshman killed a demonoid on his own? That's absurd, she mutters, though the evidence lies before her. As she processes Wet Pen's words, Abel reflects on her own prestigious lineage, descended from legendary heroes. Yet compared to Kong she feels ordinary. The sheer gap in their abilities stirs a mix of admiration and dread within her. Finally, Abel orders her group to start healing Kong. The guy is dying here, Wet Pen grumbles. Rachel continues to hold Kong tenderly, marveling at his strength. He's my age, yet he fought a demonoid alone and won. It's unbelievable. Abel, both impressed and irritated, watches silently. Wet Pen interrupts her thoughts, asking, You contacted the Academy, right? Yeah, Abel replies. Wet Pen hesitates before continuing, Don't tell them everything. Something doesn't add up. What do you mean? Abel asks. Wet Pen explains, If they scouted this island, how did a demonoid just appear in a cave cadets could easily find? It doesn't make sense. Abel stiffens, glancing toward her unconscious teammate. Suspicion creeps into her mind as Leon, standing nearby, speaks coldly. You think there's someone from the demon faction within the Academy, don't you? Wet Pen shakes his head. That's not exactly what I meant. But the uneasy tension lingers, and Abel's sharp gaze suggests she isn't ruling anything out. They can't rule out the possibility of a spy, and it's undeniable that this cave isn't easy for cadets to miss. As Wet Pen points out, if it weren't for Kong Jayama, Leon's group would have been slaughtered by the demonoid. But the question remains, how did this even happen? The story reveals that, despite conflicts during the 700-year truce, demons had never dared to target cadets of the Joaquin Academy. There was even a clause in the truce stating such an act could justify war. Abel begins to comprehend the potential gravity of the situation. This could be a spark for war. Wet Pen notices Abel's frozen expression and snaps her out of it. I know what you're thinking, he says, but we're jumping the gun here. Sure, it's wise to be cautious about the possibility of a spy, but it's way too soon to assume that's the case. Leon nods and adds, if there really is a spy in the Academy, Kong will become their prime target as soon as word gets out that he defeated a demonoid alone. Wet Pen agrees but expresses his concern. I don't think it's fair to keep all of this under wraps after everything Kong did for us. Abel steps forward with a plan. We should talk to my grandfather, the Sword Emperor, she suggests. He's outside the Academy's authority and can keep this confidential. The scene shifts to a sunny day. A light breeze flows through an open window as Kong wakes up in a hospital bed. He stares at his hands in disbelief. I'm alive, he thinks. His mind flashes back to the battle, recalling how the mermaid fired a magical sphere before its death. He couldn't dodge the attack but managed to see it clearly. In a beautifully illustrated moment, Kong remembers how his sashimi knife cut through the sphere like a straight line. It felt as though the magic itself had a thread he could sever. When he slashed, the magic split in two before bursting. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced before, almost as if he had sliced through water itself. Sitting up, Kong wonders about that feeling. After activating the sword god's blessing, he felt things he can't quite describe. As he contemplates the blessing, he opens his stats window. He notices his mental fortitude has increased by 1 point. Reflecting on how he didn't feel fear facing the mermaid, he attributes it to this stat boost. His assimilation rate has also risen from 6.8% to 7.2%, and one of the conditions for something has been met. The next will unlock at 15%. Kong speculates that cutting the mermaid's magic might have triggered the increase. While lost in thought, an ominous figure enters the room. It's the principal, Media. She rushes to Kong, crying and throwing herself at him. Her large chest smothers him as she hugs him tightly. "I was so worried something terrible had happened to you," she exclaims. "I swear I was ready to deal with every one of those damn instructors who explored that area." Kong, flustered, tries to push her back. "Principal, please stop." Media laughs and apologizes, claiming she's just relieved he's awake. Suddenly, she remembers something and begins searching through her magical purse. "Where is it?" "I know I put it near the top," she mutters. "Is that a dimensional pocket?" Kong asks. Finally, Media finds what she was looking for. Pulling out an elegant sword, she presents it to Kong. "Here it is. Your midterm reward," she says, showing off her thick thighs as she hands him the blade. "This is the Mori-same." Kong examines his new sword. It's level 25 and scales more with strength. Its name, which means rain shower, reflects its edge, said to glisten like dew. Media hopes Kong likes it and apologizes for giving it to him informally. He should have received it officially. Just then, someone calls for her from outside. Annoyed, Media turns, showing her irritation and her curves. She yells at the old geezer, telling him to hurry up and come in. It's Zeke, who retorts that she shouldn't call him that. Standing next to him, Media rolls her eyes and asks if he thinks she's acting too young. Kong, observing the scene, feels a strange sense of déjà vu. Kong asks why both Media and the Sword Emperor are there. Media apologetically explains they've heard everything from his teammates. On behalf of the Joaquin Academy, she bows her head deeply, with Zeke following suit, asking for Kang's forgiveness. Kong is stunned. He never imagined the principal herself would apologize. Media, still bowing, expresses her shame that the Academy is to blame for everything that happened during the midterms. She vows on her honor as director to uncover the truth. Zeke thanks Kong for saving the cadets. Kong, unsure of how to respond, humbly says he only did what he could. Media smiles but turns serious again, emphasizing that they need to keep the incident under wraps until the full truth is revealed. She admits, as the Academy's director, it's shameful to say this, but the mastermind behind the incident is within the Academy. Media then lightens the mood, telling Kong he should act more like a teenager and throw a tantrum sometimes instead of being so mature. Kong, slightly amused, stays quiet. After the conversation, Media and Zeke prepare to leave but pause by the door. Media reminisces about the day she and Zeke first met. "You were lying on that bench after enrolling," she recalls with a chuckle. "I told you to shove it and you drew your sword without a word. What was it you said? Something like, 'Don't order me around'? Typical 8th grader syndrome." Zeke doesn't remember any of it. Media sighs, stating it feels like just yesterday, even though she's been at the Academy for 60 years. Reflecting on the Academy's ancient history, she marvels at how small her time there feels compared to its legacy. Zeke, deep in thought, agrees. Despite the occasional major or minor incidents, the Academy has nurtured and protected cadets for 700 years. Media, now surging with green aura, becomes furious. The glass around them shatters as she creates a protective barrier for herself and Zeke. Angrily, Media recalls that before the midterms she had received reports that the instructors had completed multiple surveys of Scapula Island. Even though mermaid sightings were rare, every precaution was taken. Yet things still went horribly wrong. Zeke places a calming hand on Media, pulling her out of her anger. Apologizing for losing control, Media shifts back to her more relaxed self, praising Kong for his incredible feat of defeating the mermaid alone. Zeke acknowledges Kang's extraordinary talent. Reflecting on the countless so-called geniuses who burned out, Zeke admits that Kong is different. If anyone deserves the title, it's Kong, whose potential seems limitless. Zeke wonders just how far Kong might go, questioning if he could reach the pinnacle Zeke once dreamed of. As they leave, Zeke seriously advises Media to stay at the Academy for now. Media smiles at him and asks if he's not going to help her clean up. Zeke, clearly confused, doesn't remember agreeing to anything like that, to which Media teasingly asks if he's gone senile. Zeke simply responds, "I don't remember." The scene shifts back to the wolf class where Kong is now back in class. He reflects that the fact he severed the demonoid's head on Scapuli Island seems to have been kept quiet, likely due to the headmaster's instructions. Although it feels a bit awkward to say, he wonders if his classmates are so carefree because of his role in stopping the mermaid. Kong tells us that after his discharge, the first thing he did was visit the school's forge to reshape and enhance his new sword. He muses that his school never had a forge, Did anyone else's? Honestly, to Kong, the sword was just a metal rod, given the sword god's blessing, so reforging it was a necessity. The blacksmith, Volander, was full of enthusiasm, especially with it being the 700th anniversary event. Volander didn't charge him anything, instead telling him to come back in a week. Kong feels lucky, hoping for a successful enhancement. Just then, someone calls his name and Kong turns around to see Chloe, now using crutches because of her injured foot. She can't believe Kong has been discharged and asks how he's feeling. Kong asks how she's doing and Chloe smiles, showing her bandaged leg. She explains that her injury happened thanks to Speed, or whatever his name was, and the doctor said she should be able to walk without crutches in a week. Confidently, she adds that as an auditor, she'll recover even faster. Apologizing for getting a bit too excited, she smiles at Kong, who's glad to see she's doing better. He then asks if anything unusual has been happening, to which Chloe tells him she's heard that Director Media and some elders have been at odds. Kong thinks about how, although it's true that he alone defeated the mermaid, it wasn't solely his effort. Everyone had a part to play: Chloe's rescue call, Rachel clearing the merman, Wetman's healing and blessings, and Leon, who did absolutely nothing. Kong wonders how Leon could possibly defeat the Demon King if he was so passive. He considers that maybe it's because Leon got injured first. Suddenly, their instructor enters the class and orders the students to stop what they're doing. He tells them to quiet down and sit, as there are a few announcements before the training assembly. The instructor then informs the class that for the time being, someone will be co-instructing with him, and he introduces them. The whole class wonders who it could be, only to be shocked when the Sword Emperor, Zeke, walks in. Dressed to impress and looking serious, Zeke walks in front of the class. The students are in awe, and even the instructor bows to him. Zeke, with his glowing eyes, focuses intently on the students, while Kong, now worried, thinks, "What is this old geezer doing here?" The scene shifts to what appears to be an abandoned house, where an old man is being beaten. He tries to apologize but is struck across the face by the sexy pink-haired instructor, who was clearly behind the mermaid attack. The old man is truly sorry and apologizes to Instructor Kim, but she mutters something in demon tongue, her demonic aura radiating as she looks at him. She coldly states, "The 5th Corps commander is enraged." Instructor Kim, holding a worm or perhaps a candy worm, asks the guy she's beating why he didn't cooperate when he had the chance. With a seductive look, she eats the candy worm and comments that he really has a knack for annoying people. The guy attempts to apologize again, but she slaps him across the face. Sucking on the candy worm, she tells him to repeat himself. Annoyed, she mumbles that this is becoming too much. The guy, bleeding, mumbles an apology and Kim kicks him, saying he still isn't taking her seriously. He curses her, calling her a mere instructor and questioning how she dares hurt him. Kim is irritated, disgusted by the blood on her shoes. Cleaning them off, she remarks that it's ridiculous a mermaid was taken down by a group of first-year students, but looking at the new students this year, she wouldn't be surprised if they could do anything. The guy then tries to explain that the mermaid was defeated by just one cadet. Kim asks if it was Leon, but the guy shakes his head. She demands to know who it was, and the bloody guy reluctantly reveals that it was this year's top student, Kong Jiyama. Kim recalls Jiyama, realizing he's the special admission student. Holding and burning the candy wrapper, she understands the situation and finds it exciting. As the wrapper disintegrates, she enters her seductive demon mode. The scene shifts to cadets running and counting after their instructor, signaling the start of training. The instructor yells at them to shout louder since he can't hear them. All the students are running and counting, but one student is sitting on a bench, Chloe, the injured cadet, cheering on the others. Kong looks at her and smiles, feeling jealous. From behind, someone yells at him to pick up the pace. It's the old Sword Emperor Zeke in a tracksuit. He asks Kong if he's still injured from the midterms, and Kong responds that he's fine now. Zeke wonders why the old man is running alongside him, thinking about Zeke's identity. Zeke is a descendant of the first Sword Saint and the right hand of Baylor Wakin, the Sword Saint Aaron Nebulum. Kong knows that Zeke would later become one of the greatest forces in humanity's coming war, and also Leon's swordsmanship master during the Second Demon War. Kong wonders why Zeke is here now and just wants him to go back to Leon, as the main story is falling apart. Despite his annoyance, he's impressed by how fast Zeke is, realizing that this old man is faster than he is. Kong remembers from the game wiki that Leon never actually received the Sword Saint title, which was a major issue in the game community. He wonders if it matters since Leon could still inherit it, but it still feels uncomfortable. Other students are impressed with Kong and Zeke, with Kong noting that Zeke's speed seems almost poster-worthy, like master and pupil running together. Zeke states that the foundation of any warrior is physical strength and endurance. No matter how talented someone is, it's useless without the body to support it. Conditioning is key to growth. He tells Kong not to cut corners and keep up. Kong, out of breath, shouts back, "Yes, sir." Zeke is pleased and urges him to keep up, dashing forward quickly. Kong struggles to keep up, wondering if Zeke is aging backwards. The cadets are then informed that, unless it's for field training, personal weapons are strictly prohibited. Instead, they must choose from a pile of rusty old farming or training weapons. Zeke tells them to pick one and master it. Some students can't believe it as they have family heirlooms they'd rather use. Kong looks at the pile and notices a sashimi knife. One student raises his hand to ask Zeke if it wouldn't be better in the long run to get used to the weapons passed down by their families. When asked why personal weapons are prohibited, Zeke responds that it's a good question. He explains that mastering the basics is more important than relying on high-grade weapons. The more someone depends on superior equipment, the more they risk neglecting their training. A good warrior shouldn't rely on their weapon alone to make up for shortcomings. A student argues loudly that learning how to use these weapons is even more important. The other students get annoyed, sensing he's just trying to get attention. Zeke responds firmly, saying that no matter how well equipped you are, if your skills are lacking, your weapon will be like a pearl necklace on a pig. A true master never blames their equipment. These words hit Kong like a truck and he agrees, saying it's 100% true. Zeke taps his cane on the ground, stating that once they master the basics, they'll become comfortable with any weapon. He adds that cadets who handle basic weapons well are likely to receive higher scores in the class promotion evaluation at the end of the year. Hearing this, all the students rush to grab their weapons. Kong thinks Zeke knows how to motivate people, and the other students are completely inspired. He had always thought of Zeke as a punching bag for the media, but now he's seeing a different side of him. Kong notices the sashimi knife among the fallen weapons and knew this would happen. Quickly he grabs it. Zeke immediately locks eyes with him and Kong senses something is up. Zeke tells the students that today, they only need to get accustomed to their weapons. He announces a one-on-one sparring session for training. Some students worry they might get hurt without the subspace, but Zeke reassures them. They enrolled in this academy to become warriors worthy of carrying on the legacy of their ancestors. A warrior can only truly grow through combat and the risk of being defeated. However, if they fight recklessly, they might accidentally harm or kill each other. Therefore, before pairing off, Zeke will demonstrate proper sparring. The students are excited to see Zeke's skills as they've only ever watched him on YouTube. The instructor yells for them to quiet down, reminding them that no talking is allowed during lessons. Even the instructor is trembling, thinking that this is the biggest crisis of his life. He fears facing the Sword Emperor, even in a demonstration. He apologizes to his mother, fearing this is the end for him. As he stands there, Zeke stops him and calls out Kong. Everyone moves aside as the two lock eyes, and Zeke orders Kong to come forward.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see another part. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time. Bye-bye.